Hello and welcome to another episode of Work 2.0, the podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wells, and today we are talking to the man, the myth, the legend. We're talking to none other than the man behind the Oscars, the Governor's Ball. He's been at the backbone of the catering industry behind one of the world's most prestigious star-studded events that we look forward to every year. This man is none other than Wolfgang Puck. He's a chef, a world-class chef, fine dining expert, and we also have with us his son, another guest, Byron Puck. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the great introduction.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah.
Right?
Congratulations. 3 new titles in a row.
Exactly, right?
That's why he's the president of the company. I'm just the man and the myth.
And a legend.
Well, we could go with that too. So we hear a lot about the Oscars, right? You know, it's a globally recognized event. Like, who doesn't know the Oscars? Who doesn't tune into what's some part of it? But little is spoken of what goes on behind the scenes, right? Especially for an event of this high profile and this scale. So talk us through, Wolfgang, if you could talk us through, and I'll get back to you, Byron. Talk us through like what it takes to deliver an event of this magnitude. Walk us through your process. How does it work?
Yeah, well, it works. We have a great team. You know, if I could do it alone, I would make a lot of money. But we have probably 150 people in 2 different cuisines, in the 2 different kitchens.
Right.
And about 350 people in the dining room, waiters, busboys, bartenders, and so forth, you know.
Mhm.
And it started like years ago, the first years when we did it, like 30 years ago or so, it was a formal sit-down dinner, which I always thought was boring because the people already are sitting for 4 hours watching the telecast, watching the Oscar presentation, you know.
Right.
You have to go to dinner and sit again with people you might not even know or you don't want to really sit with. So I think about 10 years ago, we changed the whole system about that and made it more into a grazing party, where you still can sit down and eat too, but on lower chairs, lower tables and everything. And you can walk around, so it's no fixed seating. So if you like to talk to somebody, it's easy to get up. It's not like somebody sitting on a table in black tie, you know, you're going to interfere. So,
Right.
now it's a great party more than a dinner, you know. Yeah, the quality of the ingredients, the quality of the food is just what we do in the restaurant. Because we have so many people cooking, every station really has one thing. So it's like the same menu. We could do it at Spargo, the same quality. Also, the food is served hot or the cold food is served cold. So, and there's enough people, excuse me, to clean, to keep their room not with empty plates or whatever. So, and provide people with drinks. Like we have Clarence Dillon, you know, the people who own Aubryon, they bring the wine. And we have Piper Heidsieck has their champagne, and then we have the Don Julio tequila and so forth. So we have all really upscale ingredients to drink and to eat. And people seem to enjoy it because if you want to have Wagyu beef, you know, we get this Miyazaki beef. If you really like it, you just tell the waiter, okay, give me one more plate, and a minute later, you're going to have another plate.
Right.
If you want to walk around, we have different stations in the dining room too. So like this year, we had 5 sushi chefs on the station who were making different nagiris, different tomakis, and so forth. So they were just there. And at the beginning, they made a few in advance, but all 5 of them basically made it just like in a good Japanese restaurant to order. We got half of a beautiful bluefin tuna from Spain, which looked perfect and tasted perfect. We got it in just for our event.
Wow.
The same thing, we have some wonderful striped bass from Virginia, like a 5-6 pounders. And we put them in a puff pastry, the way I did it in the old time when I worked in France at Beaumanière. So it was in puff paste, 2 fillets. We seasoned well with salt, pepper, and fresh herbs,
Yeah.
and we sauté julienne of vegetables, and put them in between the fillets and cook them in puff pastry. So when we serve it, because the puff pastry keeps it really hot, it keeps the fish hot, so you get a perfectly hot fish, perfectly
Wow.
with a little like a beurre blanc with fresh herbs in it. So it's really the quality of the food is as good. Or we make a little agnolotti with black truffles. It's the end of the black truffle season, so people could get a little pasta like that. And we have 5 chefs who only do special orders. If you say, oh, you're gluten-free, obviously we have gluten-free pasta and we
Right.
eat.
Like I'm vegan, so how would that work? Do you guys have plant-based chefs as well?
Mhm.
You won't get anything. We give you some steaks from Snake River Farm. No, we have a whole section with vegan food, from wild mushroom risotto, where we have just a mushroom stock and make the risotto. And because you're so nice, we would shave you a little black truffles on top too.
Oh,
And then, we have like stir-fried Hunan eggplant, which is really delicious too. We're gonna have
wow.
different
No,
salads.
this is so unfair. I just had dinner, but now I feel like I'm hungry all over again.
All right, good. Yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
and then we have chefs who just do special things. Like I remember Marty Scorsese, he said, Wolfgang, just can you give me a simple pasta with tomato, basil, and garlic, and maybe some grilled shrimps to it. And it wasn't on our menu, and I told the chef, okay, let's make that. When unbelievable won for best director for, I think, for Brokeback Mountain or whatever the movie was a while ago. And we surprised him with the whole steamed fish, Hong Kong style, So,
Wow.
plus, we have a great dessert station too. Like this year, we had my mother's recipe for apple strudel with marzipan ice cream and caramel sauce.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Now, I've got a sweet tooth, and I was telling your son before we started, off the record, I was telling him that one of the things I'm currently doing is launching a vegan luxury bakery, which is plant-based as well as sugar-free. So when you said strudel, I'm like, I that's my weakness.
Okay.
So I would have to try that. As long as it's plant-based, I would have to try it.
It's our weakness too, so we align very heavily there.
Yeah, I've got a sweet tooth, so yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you've got, like, when you're planning this night, you're thinking of so much. You're thinking about having the 5 sushi chefs. You're thinking about having chefs on demand who are basically tailoring and adapting the menu in real time. That's like, I cannot imagine, when we think about AI and business leadership, there's a lot of risk management and mitigation and planning involved and strategy. But you're doing this like on the ground in real time. I don't think people understand like how much brain energy goes into successfully executing a night like that. And then what goes like is mind baffling for me is how you have all the ingredients available to just adapt as needed. Like if someone comes in and says, and you just have the ingredients available, how do you plan for your work so that if someone asks, I want this recipe, I want this adapted, or I'm gluten-free and I'm vegan, how do you adapt for those situations?
Well, we know we do that for so many years, so we know we are ready for some, obviously not for everything. If somebody says, I want a pastilla, we're not going to make a pastilla for somebody. It would take too long,
Yeah.
Or if somebody wants a michui, a whole roasted lamb, we cannot make it for them. We don't have it, but we might have lamb chops, or things like that. So I think maybe what is good with us, because we really know what people eat, what the people want. And no, it's not an answer, but if somebody wants something, we don't have it, they said, oh, but you can have this. And they said, oh, great, thank you. I didn't even think about it,
Is that
So,
only in fine dining that no is not an answer, or is that just across the board in the hospitality industry?
Yeah, like I remember, like Ryan Coogler, I thought he was so hungry after the show and so happy he won an Oscar. And then I brought him in the kitchen and he was standing there and he said, oh my God, your chicken pot pie is the best thing I ever had. My mother couldn't make it even close to that. And then we had a little bit of the other dishes. We had the pasta and so forth. So instead of eating in 10 minutes, so he was spending over half an hour just tasting all the different dishes.
Wow.
And it was very good. And I remember when Joachim Phoenix won, and I brought him in the kitchen too, because he said, I'm a vegan, and my girlfriend or whatever she said, his fiance is a vegan too. And so we made him whatever we had vegan that day. And he said, Wolfgang, this is the best vegan restaurant I have ever been to.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
For that moment, you're everything they need at that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's really amazing that you're able to be agile and adapt in real time. I want to know, I'm glad you shared that story with Ryan Coogler, because that's actually quite funny that he was saying, oh, even his mother could make chicken like that. I'm like, let's be careful that his mother doesn't hear this episode. But like, when it comes to obviously like, what could go wrong on a night like the Oscars, you got everything going perfectly. Has there ever been, like, in your 30+ year history of serving at these nights, has there ever been an occasion where something has gone or potentially was about to go wrong? Tell me, give me the inside scoop. I want to know.
I think there are a few times, for example, when we did it down at the Shrine Auditorium, which is an old famous auditorium downtown Los Angeles, where the Oscars were taking place years ago. And we had to build a kitchen, an extra kitchen in the parking lot, in the parking structure. And there was the opposite of this year. So it was a very cold day, it was raining and windy and everything. And I still remember I made plucked truffle risotto with a grilled chicken breast. So at that time, we just had a choice of 2 main courses or whatever. And we had like 10 chefs making risotto in big casseroles like that. But the wind blew so hard, instead of the gas flame going up like that, it went like this.
No way.
I walked by there and look, at not one chef had the risotto boiling, the rice boiling. I said, oh, chef, what's going on? So then we had to put aluminum foil around the stove that high up, so in between the pot and the stove. So then all of a sudden the rice started to boil. But
that's quick thinking.
Yeah. And I think the worst thing happened when we opened our new place up at Hollywood and Highland, where the Oscars take place now. I don't know what happened with the electricity. We had all these engineers and who were there to check that everything is fine. And I always cook everything at the last moment. And we cooked like to be ready maybe for 800 people. Had steaks ready, the meat ready and everything. And then I said, oh, with the rest, we just cook it. We don't want to serve 1,500 people in 10 minutes. So we still have time to cook it. I want them to eat the food just like the restaurant. And all of a sudden, the electricity went out.
Wow.
The gas went out, and I said, oh, shit, well, how are we going to cook for the rest of the people? Naturally, in the dining room, they had the security lights. Nobody even knew there was something going on.
Oh.
And I said, oh, my God, how are we going to cook this steak? So I put up all these sterno, what do you call them?
The little sterno burners.
The little burners like that, like a little ratio, what people use for parties or whatever. And I said, okay, let's slice the steaks really fast and cook them in a lot of butter, and so that way we can serve them. So we had like 20 of them lined up.
Oh my goodness.
And meanwhile, the engineer was down in the building because we are up on the 6th floor. He was down in the basement, and the security was so tight they didn't let him out. They didn't let him come up.
Oh, wow.
So it was about 15 minutes where I said, I don't know how we're going to serve everybody, But then 15 minutes later, the guy came up. I didn't know where the switch was, what the breakers were or whatever. He turned it on. Everything went fine. Oh. And nobody actually noticed what was happening except me, who almost got a heart attack.
Of course, and that speaks a lot to. There's a lot of pressure that leaders face that is unspoken. Like when you're running a business and you've been doing this for years now, there's a lot of things that you absorb silently that no one else sees, because you're just trying to keep everything afloat. You're trying to keep operations running smoothly and business as usual. But there's a lot that you're absorbing in. I want to go back to you in just a second. I know Byron has to jump off soon, so I'm going to go back to you in just a second. But let's talk a little bit about legacy and succession planning when it comes to leadership. Byron, right? So you're Wolfgang's son. I'm sure, is there a lot of pressure on you being the son of such like an exceptional restaurateur? Like, how's that feel?
Often what I feel most is just gratitude. I try to in most respects, and that it's a very busy, fast-paced, but wonderful industry that both my father has been passionate about for over 60 years. And for myself personally, I'm just very lucky that I found that exact same level and love for this industry. Because then I get to work hand in hand with my dad, every single day, going through the restaurants, tasting new dishes, working on new dishes, working on new menus, working on new restaurants, right? From a granular level of the industry all the way to the high level. So I wouldn't say that it's not without pressure by any means. I'd be lying to you if I said that, to be honest, but I really do welcome the pressure in that same respect. Not to be overly cliche, but pressure builds diamonds, and I really hope that through that pressure, we can do and exercise great restaurants and make people really happy, curate amazing memories for our guests. And ultimately, one of our biggest goals is create a lot more opportunity for people within this industry as well.
Amazing.
To breed that next generation of chefs or restaurateurs or front of house hospitalitarians, I think is one of the most amazing and honorable callings in life that we have.
Yeah.
And so for me, I kind of love and thrive off of that pressure. It means, to me, it means with, that pressure building and always mounting means that we're doing something good.
Yeah, yes, it's that legacy as well. Like that's what you've been like the product or the receiving end of that legacy, and now you want to pass that on. I think that's amazing. So, like growing up as a child, how was it like watching him? Like, were you always asking to be in the kitchen, or was it as you got older that love came?
No, not particularly. No, it was certainly different. I mean, I think growing up, we had most of our family dinners in the restaurants, right? My dad was working.
Yeah.
Building new restaurants, operating Spago here in Los Angeles as well. So I got a lot of amazing opportunities to have, family dinners at the restaurants very often.
Amazing.
And I think when I actually look back in retrospect now, 25 plus years later, I only now kind of respect and understand the actual impact that had on me. Because Spago, most predominantly, the restaurant here actually felt like my family.
Wow.
My dad would get up from the table sometimes because a certain person would walk in, or he'd be walking around the dining room floor saying hi and greeting these guests. And there are still servers, bussers, hosts that are working in that restaurant from when I was a child that I always remember and still have these amazing memories of them coming up to the table and doing magic tricks or entertaining me or talking to me. And
like family, right?
Yeah, and becoming like members of my family or treating me like I was one of their own too. And I think that's one of the greatest aspects of what my father built at the end of the day, is that it truly is a family run, owned and operated company. And that family does not just include people with the last name Puck. It includes everybody involved. And that's a really amazing thing. Those are some of my earliest memories in the restaurants, at least. But I didn't ask to work in the restaurant right away. I was always maybe a little bit unsure at a young age, because I would walk into the kitchen with my dad and you feel this really controlled, chaotic energy.
Wow.
Is what it felt like in a lot of respects. But my dad used to, I used to do work on the pizza line every once in a while with my dad. He'd make me like a Mickey Mouse pizza very often. And it was like one of my favorite things growing up. It always excited me. And so I had some really good, strong, positive memories in the kitchen at a young age. It wasn't until my bar mitzvah, in actuality, though, where I stood upon a stage in front of 500 people.
Yeah.
And me and my dad have a very similar sense of humor. So I turned around to my dad in the middle of the speech and I was like, I'm 13 at this time, mind you, right? So I turned around to my dad, I go, don't worry, in a few years you'll be sipping Mai Tais in Malibu, and I'll take over and you won't have to worry about a thing.
And here you are now.
And the very next day, my dad was like, if you really want to do this, you need to come and work in the restaurant and learn and understand it. So sure enough, school ended, and that summer he took me to the restaurant to Spago and showed me around the kitchen. The chef de cuisine showed me around the kitchen. And I was looking at every station, and high-minded 13-year-old Byron was like, I'm spinning pizzas first day, right? Like I'm all excited. And the chef de cuisine at the time showed me the dishwashing station at the end of the tour and was like, this is where you're going to work for the summer. And I was like, okay, understood. And so, I worked for the remainder of my time on the 3-compartment sink. And
but then greatness always starts with like the things that are not so exciting. So hey, right?
No, but it's the most important job at the same point in time. My dad has a statement. He always says, it truly is. It's the most important job. Everything really fluctuates around that position in the restaurant in certain respects. So it was really important. Now, at the same time, it kept me in the kitchen, and it allowed me the opportunity to watch the chef's work and the creations that were coming from their fingertips. And that's how I fell in love with food, was being able to see the behind the scenes and the artistry of it all. And that chaotic energy that I felt as a child turned into this like controlled artistic passion that I watched within those 4 walls, and that spurned on this just creative love for me that I knew in that moment. I was like, I think if I can sit here, learn, and understand this industry with all of these amazing people around me, I think I have a good shot at making it here. So, and the rest is history, I guess.
Right. So just to wrap up, because I know you've got to go, in one sentence, tell me, like, how do you envision like the future of this whole enterprise with you in it? In one sentence, what does that look like to you?
It's a great question. From a vision perspective, I would say for the next years to come, I'd want the Wolfgang Puck companies, the Wolfgang Puck Fine Dining Group, to be known as the preeminent leader of hospitality experiences within the world of food and beverage, and as the company that is going to grow and mentor the next generation of hospitality professionals.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Byron. I know you've got to run, and I'm going to shift now to our final question with your dad. I'm going to steal your dad's time for a bit, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
You didn't ask him about the next generation. He doesn't even know how to make the next generation yet.
Oh, yeah, that's brutal. I don't have any. Someday, thanks.
Oh, bless. I love your dad's humor.
It's really incisive. It's really good.
Right? Just when you don't expect it. So Wolfgang, tell me something. When it comes to when we think about legacy, thinking about your own journey up to this level, obviously you didn't start off an exceptional chef, or maybe you did, who knows, right? But when you started off, kind of walk me through how you started, what inspired you when you started, and just quickly, like, how did you get from, point A to point Z where you are right now?
Well, it's a long point in between, like just like the alphabet, there's a lot of letters in between.
That's why I said Z.
Z, maybe, and I think, I started really miserably because I had a miserable childhood because of my stepfather. My mother was a chef also, and every summer when I was 12, 13 years old or so, I used to go to the hotel where she worked in the kitchen and help the pastry chef or help my mother sometimes. So, but all I wanted to go is get out of my house. So I started an apprenticeship when I was 14, about 50 miles away. Wow. And lived on my own at that time. And, went to the lakes and swam in the summer on my day off, or went skiing once in a while if I had the money. And then I did that for 3 years. And during that time, I found out we had a French gastronomic week in our restaurant in the hotel in Villach. And I said, oh my God, they're making this interesting thing. They're cooking with wine. Our chef, he used to drink the wine in the kitchen, but never cooked with it. So And we made, coq au vin or bœuf bourguignon and dishes like escargot and pâtés and things like that. I said, wow, this sounds really, and it tasted really so different. I said, I want to learn more. So I went to France, worked in Dijon in a restaurant called Professeur for about a year. And then the owner gave a party for the employees because we got 1 star in the Guide Michelin. But I always thought this was the best restaurant in France. So that's the way we were talking there. And then I looked through the guide and I found out there is a 1, 2, and 3-star restaurants, So then I said, I'm not going back to Austria. I want to work in one of these restaurants and see what's really going on. So the first restaurant who told me to okay was Raymond Juliet at Beaumanière in Provence. I wrote to Bocuse, Trois Gros, La Serre, Roger Verger, all these famous chefs of that time. And Raymond Juliet accepted me, started as a stage. I told him, you don't have to pay me if I'm not good enough. And sure enough, after 3 months, I told him, oh, Mr. Juliet, I'm going to have to leave. I really like it here, but I have to leave because I ran out of money. And he said, how you run out of money? I said, well, you didn't pay me. He said, what, we didn't pay you? And he took me to the office and actually gave me enough money. So I was really happy and I stayed
Who wants to keep you?
Yeah, I stayed there for 2.5 years. And he really changed my life. He became my mentor. Maybe without him, I would be a truck driver or doing something totally different. Yeah. So, and then I just continued in France and went to Monte Carlo, to Beaulieu, and then to Maxime's, and then came to America. And I'm always a big fan of auto racing in New York. Somebody offered me a job in Indianapolis, and I went to Indianapolis expecting like a little bit like Monaco, like actually a beautiful place. And so I arrived in Indianapolis. I said, oh my God, that's Indianapolis. And I started to work there. It was okay. And I cooked more steak well done in Indianapolis than the rest of my life, I think so. And I moved to LA. And then worked for a restaurant called La Maison for Patrick Terraille. His uncle owned La Tour d'Argent. And then in 1982, I opened Spago. And
so you just ventured out on your own. You're like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I want to be my own boss. I didn't want to ask somebody for a raise anymore. And they said, no. And we don't have the money. And yet Patrick was driving it himself. So
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways for me, like from this interview. You both were so inspirational. I think the first thing I gathered from just talking to you guys is legacy is such a big deal. Like even you've seen that mentor that you had. You said if it wasn't for him, who knows where you would be today, right?
Yeah.
That legacy aspect is so important when it comes to leadership. I think a lot of times leaders, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you've seen this as well, leaders are very much self-focused. Like, I want more money, more power. I want that, that corner office. I want all the, everything is about me. And they don't think about, or at least they don't show they're thinking about the next generation, mentoring, progression, not just succession planning from an HR point of view, but actually empowering people at all levels of the organization, all the way down to, the caretaker, the cleaner, whoever, even people who are not traditionally corporate, you know what I mean? And I think just seeing like the influence that's had on both of your lives from a father-son level, as well as you having that mentor in your life who took you on, paid you when you're about to leave, that's really, really important. And then also taking that bet on yourself, saying, I'm not getting paid enough. There's a lot of people that stay stuck in jobs and they know they're not getting paid what they're worth, but they'll stay stuck in it because they're scared to take that bet on themselves and say, I'm going to say yes to me. And I think, like, for me, I'm like, wow, because you took that bet on yourself, that's why you are where you are today. Otherwise, you would have probably been still working for different restaurants, which is not a bad thing, but you would have been stuck, you know what I mean? And wouldn't be the world-renowned name that you are today. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming on to this interview. Really appreciate it. I know you're both very busy people, so I'm going to let you go. But for those of you who, if you have any questions for Byron and Wolfgang, feel free to comment, and I'll be sure to pass them on. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to follow Work 2.0, the podcast, on Apple and Spotify. Definitely share this episode, share the podcast and rate it and comment. Share it with your co-workers, because it's a very inspiring story, but at the same time, it's so much that you can pull from it for your own personal life as you seek to progress your career. Thank you so much, guys. It's been great having you. And I'll see you next week on Work 2.0, the podcast.